This is a 7-minute video, but it's going to take us longer than that so that everyone can get all the info they need to get this done right.
Have you ever wanted to try Linux properly but don't want your Windows installation to disappear? Or are you wanting to dual boot both operating systems with a nice menu on startup? Then this simple to follow guide will show you how you can easily dual boot Windows and Linux on your PC. All you need to get started is a USB drive at least 8 GB in size. Windows and Linux have their pros and cons. As a quick overview, Linux is free, fast, and also has better security, while Windows has much more compatible software available. By dual booting, you get the best of both worlds. I'm going to use a mini PC for my example, but this guide can be used for laptops and desktops too. So, let's get cracking. Do you have Windows 11 installed already? If not, I've linked a how-to in the video description. For this,
again, just short interruption. If you have Windows 10, just keep going. Let me know if you run into any issues. I've done this on Windows 10 as well. Back to the video.
Guide, we're going to use Ubuntu, one of the more popular Linux distributions, but other ones should work just the same. Head on over to the download page of your chosen Linux distribution or follow the Ubuntu link in my video description and download it. You should be downloading a .iso file. Next, grab your USB drive and make sure there's nothing important on it, as it's going to be completely wiped. Plug it into your PC if you haven't already, and head to the Rufus download page.
Make sure you go to the right website here, put Rufus into Google. It'll almost certainly be the first thing that pops up.
Also linked in the video description.
Most of us, I'm sure all of us, will want to click that first option for Windows x64. Remember, any questions, just write them in the chat and I will address one by one.
Run Rufus and choose the Linux ISO file you downloaded earlier.
He's doing things really fast. What you're going to want to do is, as soon as Rufus is installed or as soon as the installation file is downloaded, you're going to go through that installation wizard as you would with any software. The default should be fine. Just, click through everything. Rufus is pretty much the go-to DIY ISO USB maker. So this is a pretty normal software for people to have on their systems. The first website, Michaela, I assume you're referring to the website that you're going to use to get Ubuntu. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to type Ubuntu ISO download into Google. And you're going to want to, the first thing that pops up is from the Ubuntu website, ubuntu.com, download Ubuntu desktop. You're going to click on that. Just choose that, the 64-bit architecture that appears next to the download button. Were you able to find that, Michaela? Let me know if you're continuing. Yeah, the 5.9 gigabytes, exactly. Everyone else good, I will assume. If not, feel free to let me know. And, this is why we're here, just to make sure that we all do things exactly the way we're supposed to from there.
Check the correct USB.
I'm going to go back a little bit just so that we get, as soon as Rufus is finished installing, you should get the Rufus screen, which is this screen that says drive properties here. But I'm going to, so you just installed it. It's installed on your computer. Now we're going to continue.
Downloaded earlier.
As you can see, you just, the interface is a little bit traditional. It's a little bit old school. But you can see here that all you really have to do is click select. Make sure, obviously, that under device, you have the right volume. It'll almost certainly be selected by default, but, just make sure that this is pointing toward the USB stick that you just put in. And then here you press select to select the ISO image that you downloaded from the Ubuntu website. Assuming everyone's good, I'm going to continue the video. Again, feel free to let me know if you need any further clarification on anything.
Earlier. Check the correct USB drive is selected. I can't stress this enough. If you choose the wrong drive, it's going to get wiped. All the other options should be filled in automatically because Rufus is awesome just like that. Click start and continue the prompts to create the Linux installation media. All right, the next step is to create a Linux partition on your storage drive to dual.
Okay, we're going to give everyone a few minutes to just make sure we get that all done. I think 2 or 3 minutes should be fine, but if at the end anyone still hasn't been able to get that through yet, just let us know and we'll wait another few minutes. The next step involves partitioning your existing hard drive so that you can actually allocate part of it to Windows and part of it to Ubuntu. If you don't do this, the dual boot will still be successful, but at the point where you get to, at the point where you start filling your hard drive with, with information, it's going to become a little bit risky in terms of things getting overwritten and the system not knowing what to do. So this next step is essential. The main reason that I wanted to make sure we all do this as a group is to make sure that this next step gets followed as it should be. Very easy, not anything out of this world, but very important that it gets done. Is anyone still in the process, and don't be afraid to say yes, is anyone still in the process of getting their ISO Rufus onto their USB? Does anyone need another few minutes?
Mine is still in process.
No worries. So
Emilio, would you like to tell us a little bit about, in general, for the few people that just joined us, what this is, what the group is, what we're trying to do, and what they should do to get involved in the meantime while we wait?
Great minds think alike, Livia. Absolutely. This is the Wired Minds Robotics Group. Livia and I started this with, a couple people who were interested, but Livia and I have really been the ones pushing this toward the finish line to get this started as a functional group at SNHU. Our purpose is to get everyone making robots at home. That sounds like an insurmountable task, but one of our purposes is to show people that you really can do it, especially with all the free resources that are available online. This is something that anyone can do at home. The robotics industry itself is very open to people not necessarily from a robotics background, as long as they do have those robotics projects on their portfolio. I'm a robotics recruiter myself. A few months ago, one of the things that inspired me to even start trying to get this going was the fact that I had two candidates who, they had like all the necessary skills, but all of their experience was educational. They had never actually had a robotics job. So I sent them to some of my clients just, to see what happens. And the clients were very interested. They said, these people, just because they don't have working robotics experience, I see that they're very interested in technology that's analogous to what we work on. Let's give them a shot. This got people's foot in the door who had never had a robotics job. And just so that you guys know, my main clients are government contractors. So definitely people, small businesses who are looking for people who can provide serious collaboration and make serious innovations and contributions to what these companies are doing. And I had seen that portfolios were important, but this really drove home for me the idea that portfolio project really can get people into the industry. And that's really something that's exciting for me. I myself am working on making myself from a software engineer into a roboticist specifically. And we'll all be doing this together from scratch, which is something that's really exciting for those of us who are just getting into this or who are just joining in with the club.
Also, Emily, before you go ahead, Brighton had a question in the chat if you'd like to address that.
Oh, absolutely. What are some skills that are important to learn relating to robots? For robotics, Linux is of the utmost importance. There may be some robotic systems somewhere that don't run on Linux, but everything you're probably going to see in the professional world is going to be Linux. And specifically Ubuntu for its compatibility with the robotics operating system, which is not an operating system, but it is a library that while it does run on a lot of different OSs, you're going to want to run it on Ubuntu. So you definitely want to be as familiar as you can with Linux. Other skills that I would say are very important. In a very general term, robotics is software engineering, mechanical engineering, and electrical engineering. You need to have software to run the robot. You need to have an actual robot to run, which is the mechanical engineering. And of course, you need to set all this up electrically so that software commands end up manifesting themselves as actual mechanical movement of the robot itself. And I will definitely be looking forward to answering all and any questions at the end of this. Until we get through this actual tutorial, let's try to restrict the questions to actually getting this specifically done. And unless formally questions are asked for at the end, of this, I'm very happy to answer any questions. I love talking about robots in case that hasn't become very clear. And I'm happy to do that at the end of the discussion for sure. So I'm going to be continuing this here. Again, this is perhaps the most important part of this tutorial is what we're about to do here.
The next step is to create a Linux partition on your storage drive to dual boot Linux. At the moment, Windows is using all of your main storage drive for itself, but we're going to partition it so Linux can have its own slice. Right-click your Windows icon and choose Disk Management.
You could probably also achieve this by going into the little search bar and typing in Disk Management, enter.
There's a list of drives here.
Notice how in the middle here we have your C drive. This means that there is one partition, and this is where your current Windows OS lives right now. Continuing here.
Windows should be C drive, which you can confirm by going to this PC and checking if it has the Windows icon. So back in Disk Management, I'll right-click the C drive partition and choose Shrink Volume.
So shrink volume refers, it's kind of a funny wording there. What it's really going to do is it's going to split this into two. So it's going to take one side of this C and allocate it to your Windows machine, and it's going to take another side, and that's where we're going to put Ubuntu.
You'll need to allocate space for the Linux OS. The recommended amount for Ubuntu is at least 25 gigabytes.
This guy says 25 gigabytes. You're going to want to give it more than 25 gigabytes for a working robotics development environment. I think, if 100 is a good benchmark, my current robotics environment has 100 gigabytes allocated. You could go a little lower, probably wouldn't be an issue. If you don't have a lot of info on your computer, go half and half. It would be my recommendation. If you have a 500 gigabyte volume, go 250 and 250, or as close as that as you can get. Or hey, if you have a terabyte, like a lot of computers nowadays, go 500, 500. What you want to make sure that you do, though, of course, and I don't think that the interface will even let you not do this, but you're going to want to make sure that you only allocate space that's not being used up. In other words, if your hard drive has 500 gigs and you're using 300, you're not going to want to put like 190 or 200 for your, but you're going to want a little bit more memory for your Windows. You absolutely can adjust it later if you need to, as Jose just informed us in the chat. Yeah, 300 to start, Jose, is awesome. When I buy computers, I always choose like higher RAM and lower memory for some reason. But if I had a kilobyte, I would definitely be going half and half or giving 300. That's an excellent idea. Going back to the video again, let us know if you have any questions.
But it's up to you how much you want to allocate. I've got a 1 terabyte SSD, and I'm going to give Linux about half. For an exact calculation, 1 gigabyte is 1024 megabytes. Now that you've got your new partition,
so notice down here, he's about to go into this, but just notice down here, we have that new block. It's got a black header, which means that it's unallocated, and that's where we're going to be putting Ubuntu.
it will show as unallocated, and that's it. Before we install Linux, it's best to disable Secure Boot if it's enabled on your PC.
This is a pretty important step. I mean, this is sort of a common situation that people run into when they're dual booting. That's why I picked this video, because it kind of takes care of all that for us. So just make sure that that selection is set to off in your BIOS, and we're going to check how to do that through Windows here.
As it often causes issues with dual booting Linux. To check if it's enabled, type in System in your search bar and go into System Information. Find Secure Boot State and see if it's on. If it is, click the Windows icon, then Power, and hold the Shift key while clicking Restart.
That's hold Shift while click Restart. So you're going to press Shift before you let go. You're going to click that Restart, and you're going to get into this next menu we're going to see in a second.
You'll end up on an Options menu. Choose Troubleshoot, Advanced Options, and select UEFI Firmware Settings. Your BIOS may look different to.
So this should bump you into your BIOS. As he's about to describe, my BIOS, for example, looks very different than this. I have Windows 11 on a relatively new machine, so you're going to see a much more modernized interface, most likely. Just search for the actual specifications of the names of the pages this guy's referencing. If you have any questions or you're not able to complete it, let me know in the chat, and I'll absolutely help you individually.
Mine, but use your keyboard arrow keys if mouse isn't available to navigate to the secure boot option.
So in the interface that I had, that most of you likely have, in the left, you're going to see a big column, and toward the top, you're going to see either boot or boot configuration. It might actually show up the same way it's shown here. That's where you're going to want to find this setting.
Here's mine.
And of course, look then for secure boot.
Disable it with the Enter key and save and exit. Now it's time.
All right, this actually might take a minute or two for some of our computers to actually get through. Changing the BIOS, it was a pretty simple change, but some computers, my computer, I'm actually doing this on a pretty old computer that I got for this purpose, and it took like 5 minutes almost to get that completed. But just if anyone else has any questions they've been holding on to, feel free to write those into the chat while we are giving everyone a few minutes for their computer to reboot. In some cases, security, I've seen modern, yeah, there's a lot of really cool security innovations that are coming out now. I saw that a couple of you were actually focusing your studies on security. Cybersecurity is probably one of the most underrated aspects of robotics development. My clients focus on military robotics, and the last thing you want is to have a bunch of robots that are designed for military applications and have your enemy take control of them because your cybersecurity wasn't up to spec. That's a disaster. And cybersecurity is an extremely, just like in any IoT, robotics security really is of the utmost importance. You're talking about machines that can possibly actually do harm to humans. So any malicious people taking control of that can do some serious damage in the real world. And I'm really looking forward to some of our next projects, which sort of bring cybersecurity and robotics into the same sphere. Michaela, would it be better to do this on a different computer than on your main computer? You could. It's really not going to have much of a negative effect on your main computer. The only thing is, every time you reboot, you're going to have to select which one you want to go into. Other than that, it's going to be largely exactly the same experience. If you do have two computers and one of them is really weak and the other one is your main computer, I would recommend, when I say really weak, I mean like, less than 8 gigs of RAM or something like that. Other than that, pretty much all modern computers are going to be fine.
To install Linux, plug in the Linux USB installation media we created earlier if it isn't already. Next, click Windows, Power, hold the Shift key.
Again, this is going to be a shift and restart. So press shift, press restart, and let go of shift.
And click Restart. Choose Use a Device and select the Linux USB drive.
You might have a bunch of different drives in here instead of just that one selection. That's what happened to me. Take a good look at the specifications. It usually will include some specification, perhaps the brand of your USB, or perhaps the word Ubuntu or the word Noble 2404. You should see some specification that will lead you to know that that is the USB you should be selecting. But obviously you don't want to choose anything that's not a USB. This screen is pretty similar to what you'll see every time you reboot your computer. You're going to see a few different boot options here. The first one will probably be Ubuntu after we're done, and you're going to see the Windows Boot Manager down here. That'll be what you select. More on that later. For now, of course, you're going to select try or install Ubuntu.
Press Enter.
And this part is going to not take too long, but it does ask you for some personal information. Feel free, to make that up, especially for the cybersecurity people. You can put whatever name you want there. Make sure you just have track of it. I like putting Emilio 1, Emilio 2, Emilio 3 to keep sort of track of each of which machine is which. But you can put whatever you want in here. You're just going to select everything. I'll leave the video on while everyone does that. But, again, if you have any issues or, what should I put here, feel free to let us know in the chat.
You can try Ubuntu if you want before installing it.
I recommend clicking install Ubuntu. Just, we're already this far. There's no reason not to install at this point.
But I'm assuming you're committed to dual booting the Penguin, so click install. Follow the prompts. You can connect to Wi-Fi now or later.
I would actually recommend selecting both of these. It's not going to be that much more memory on your computer, and it could mean having more simple setup times in the future.
Eventually, you'll come to this screen notifying you that Ubuntu will be installed alongside Windows Boot Manager on the allocated space we made earlier. Then, there's some more setting up to do, which is pretty self-explanatory. Set up Linux, restart, remove the USB.
That's pretty much the last step. You have 2 computers now.
If you only boot into Windows, you'll need to head back into the BIOS. Click the Windows icon, power, then hold the Shift key on the keyboard while clicking Restart. Click Troubleshoot and then Advanced Options. Choose UEFI firmware settings. We need to find the option that allows us to choose the boot order, so look for any boot settings. Once you've found your boot order, move Ubuntu to the top. And save and exit. After the restart, you should see the Linux boot menu, which will allow you to...
This is what you'll see every time you turn on your computer. You got Ubuntu up here, a few other options that you might use. And then down here where it says Windows Boot Manager, that's what you select to enter your Windows environment.
to choose your operating system. Nice one. Ubuntu isn't difficult to use. You've got your navigation with pre-installed software and settings panel to get you started.
So some first things that I would do as soon as you have that Ubuntu environment set up, in the top left corner where you see sort of a filled in bar, for lack of better words, looks kind of like an exclamation point that fell over. You can click that and type in the name of any of the applications you need. I would highly recommend typing terminal in here and then dragging the terminal icon into your left screen. That way you're going to have access to the terminal, which, like them or not right now, is going to become your best friends in this Ubuntu environment. There's a lot of things that you can do from the interface, from the GUI, but I'm not going to say this is always the case, but usually the better option is going through the terminal. That might be a little bit of a touchy subject, but I really do believe that. I think most robotics people probably believe that. The GUI exists, it's there, it's a great tool, but as much as we can do from the terminal, the more the better. I highly recommend having a bunch of cheat sheets just sort of pasted around your desk. It really will drill this stuff into your head, and you'll have those references wherever you need them, which is great. You click down here. If you go up to the top right corner of your Ubuntu workplace, you're going to see an option screen pretty similar to what you'd see like on your cell phone if you swipe up with Android, or I'm not even sure how you do it with iOS anymore. But just the basic configuration screen. You got your volume, you got your Wi-Fi. You're going to see a little cog wheel like you would with pretty much anywhere. You click that, you're going to have printer options. So a lot of people like to set up their printers at their home environment, obviously, and instead of actually having to leave Ubuntu to do that, if you're already in Ubuntu, it's very simple to just go to this printing section within configuration or within settings and just add whichever printer you'd like, which is a lot easier than using the, what is it even called? I think it's called Cups, the software that's the Unix printer software. There's usually an easier way to do sort of commonplace things through the GUI on Ubuntu for people who aren't as seasoned with the terminal. Now, is anyone running into any issues? Is there anything that anyone would like clarification on? Really exciting beginning chapter of, I think Michaela, I believe, was the one that said that you're thinking of actually getting into robotics sort of as your main field of focus. If you do, you'll remember this moment, because this is the beginning. This is where you're going to build that robotics development environment. And we're really focused on helping everyone set up that environment at home. we're going to be setting up for the ROS Gazebo download, which for those of you who aren't familiar are two of the free and open source tools that are available to anyone that are used in definitely all my clients use ROS 2. And I would, I'd have to look up specific numbers, but I'd assume that most robotic systems, especially for autonomous mobile robotics, are using this software, which we'll be putting onto everyone's systems in our next session. Anyone have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or write them into the chat. Open to your question. How you doing?
This might be a silly question, but I thought of it when you mentioned multimeters. The quality of the components and things like that, how important is that? Because I've bought like kits to learn circuitry. I do homeschooling, and with my children, we've been trying to learn circuitry and stuff like that. And a lot of the kits come with like diodes, compressors, like wires, the multimeter, things like that. But they are like, I guess they're just, pretty standard. But like, how important is, like, how would the quality of those things affect the end product of any project you work on? Would I need to get a certain quality of components, or what kind of investment would that be?
Well, first of all, it's awesome what you're doing. I wish more parents would do that and actually get their kids started with this stuff younger. That's a beautiful thing. And yeah, congratulations on that. But to address your question, I think there's a lot that you can do. I assume that you mean antiquated software, or are you talking about like the cheap Chinese stuff?
I'm positive that it's like basically cheap Chinese stuff. Because like I said, it's just like kits that we will order for, I'm a homeschool parent. It's not like we were going to go and make this gigantic project and try to sell it on anybody's market. So it's like it's things that we could use at home, but it's just like a lot of small little electronics equipment and stuff like that. What I need to do upgrades, or is like a basic entry level of equipment good enough for these purposes?
Based on everything that you've described, I'd say that what you have is almost certainly going to be good enough. I would assume one of these kits involved either a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino.
A Raspberry Pi. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Raspberry Pi 4 gig, I would imagine.
Yeah.
That's a powerful machine. Simple, cheap, but powerful. You can definitely set up a pretty interesting robotics system pretty much just on that, and control it from the computer that you're using now to be on this call, or that you've just dual booted onto. So I would definitely keep all of the equipment you have. If you have more questions about specific equipment with specific specs, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to take a look at what you're